Hello, good morning, good day. And I know it's evening for some of you, so welcome in. As we start piling in, I would love to see you guys. Make sure that you can hear me, that you can see me. Go ahead and put it in the chat so I can see that you guys, that we're having all the technical issues aside. Frank Kane said, all good. Awesome. Great. So I know that we have people from all around the world today joining us, and we couldn't be happier to have our special guest, Katie Bent, probably one of the most familiar faces at Udemy, long time Udemy. If you've been to any of the Udemy Lives, I'm sure that you've met Katie, but she is the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Udemy. So Katie, we are super excited to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Although seeing Frank be the first one to interact in the chat, I kind of just want to make him teach this because I think he's probably just as qualified as I am to share most of this.
Amazing. He probably is. All right, let's see. Let's keep moving because I have a fun icebreaker. We have almost 500 people have signed up for your webinar, Katie, which means that no pressure. But while we wait for people to file in, I thought it would be fun to ask all of you how long you've been teaching on Udemy. So go ahead in the chat and let's see how long you guys have been with us. 4 years, 1 month, 9 years. Who was 9 years? Sandy, amazing. 1.5 years.
One quick note, I think a lot of folks are posting to host and panelists, which is awesome. We love hearing from you, but probably everyone else also likes hearing from you. So yes. You can switch your little blue everyone button to or host and panelist button to an everyone button.
Good call on that. Okay, so while you guys are doing that, I am super excited to see all the time that you've spent on Udemy. I do want to give a quick plug for our instructor community. If you aren't aware, Udemy has an instructor community that spans 6 languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, and Japanese. So if you haven't checked out our instructor community and you speak one of those languages, by all means, head over there later on today or later this week. We will be posting this webinar in the instructor community. So if you can't stay until the end today, it will be in the instructor community. Awesome. So let's see. We have 6 years, 2 years. People are still piling in. Amazing. All right. So because we have a lot to get through today, let's talk about the agenda. We're welcoming you right now. I'm about to turn it over to Katie Bent. As I mentioned, she's our guest speaker, one of the most familiar faces at Udemy. She's going to be talking about how to make the most of your instructor experience here at Udemy. And at the end, if there is enough time, we'll take some questions. We'll also be posting a link to a post-event survey. So we'd love to hear your feedback. We use that feedback to help us inform all of the rest of our events for the rest of the year. And as Katie mentioned, there are some technical things that you should be aware of, like making sure that your chat box is set to everyone. Otherwise, just myself and Katie will be able to see your chat messages. But also, as I mentioned, we're going to be hopefully getting to some questions at the end of this webinar. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and that way we can attend to those at the end. All right, Katie, without further ado, I am kicking it over to you.
Amazing. Thanks, Christy. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I saw a couple hellos from time zones where it's very late, and I'm very honored that you're taking the time to come hear me speak. So as Christy mentioned, my name is Katie. I've been a part of the Udemy instructor team since 2016 in a variety of capacities. So I've worked with top and up and coming instructors, helping them build content to fill key gaps on the marketplace. I've run various instructor programs. I've delivered talks at Udemy Live. There's a picture from that. And I am a constant lurker in the instructor community. So I'm not saying that I read everything you post, but I'm also not saying that I read everything that you post. So these days, I lead our efforts on instructor product marketing, which means that I work hand in hand with our product teams to help them consider instructors as they build new features or change the platform in any way. And then I make sure that instructors have a chance to know about those things that we're working on. So I'm excited to talk to you today about making the most of your instructor experience. Let's look at what that means. Next slide, please. So today, I want to help you understand 2 things, which might sound not very ambitious, but they're both very meaty things. So the first is a general sense of how Udemy works in the broadest terms, who actually comes to Udemy to learn, And what should you know about them as an instructor so that you can effectively reach them? How does the platform connect courses and learners and make that match for you? And then the second piece is how you can use the tools that are available to you on Udemy to set yourself up for success. There will also be some more general strategy tips in here, in addition to sort of tactical pieces with specific tools. But the goal is to help you understand what you can do to increase your odds of success as an instructor on Udemy. And as a quick disclaimer, you can see in the chat the range of experiences that we have in the room. And even for two instructors who have been on the platform the same length of time, everyone's business is going to be a little bit different. And so there's no one piece of advice that I can give everyone that is going to make sense the same way for every single instructor. But I'm going to do my best to share the key observations and tips that I've gathered over those almost 6 years of working with instructors on Udemy. And I'm going to focus today mostly on the transactional marketplace. So not so much on subscriptions or on Udemy Business, but on what you can do to increase your success on the marketplace. So let's jump in. So let's talk about how Udemy works in the most broad sense. Next slide, please. You probably know this, but Udemy is a hub for online learning where nearly 50 million learners are seeking instruction on a huge variety of topics from tens of thousands of instructors in dozens of languages. As of late last year, we have more than 5,000 new courses being published every month, and instructors earning collectively over $150 million every year. But I think it's actually hard to grasp numbers that are that big. And as an individual instructor, you're probably not thinking about all 50 million students, right? You're probably focusing on a subset of Udemy's total audience. So let's make this a little bit more human and a little bit more practical. So who actually comes to Udemy to learn? I want to be clear that just as I can't generalize anything to the 150 instructors on this call, anything I say about 49 million people is probably going to be a bit of a generalization. But our user research team does a lot of really fantastic work to understand why people come to Udemy and what they're looking for to help us match them with the right content, and also so that we can build the right things to help them meet their goals. Generally speaking, Udemy learners are career driven. That said, even if there's a specific skill they're learning for their career, they're also interested in balance in personal development. So not just the skills they're using at work, but the skills that make them more fulfilled in their lives. They are motivated and they are tech savvy. They're often using multiple devices. So a lot of our learners are not just learning on the computer, they're also on their phone or on their tablet. And especially in emerging markets, we actually have more people who are using phones and tablets to access Udemy. They value flexibility and autonomy. That's why they're here, for an asynchronous learning experience that gives them that flexibility, but they do want guidance. There's a lot of sort of, open field on Udemy. They want encouragement in what to learn. And finally, they are time strapped. They want to learn what they need to learn efficiently and not waste too much time with the fluffy bits. So next slide. So how do we take what we know about students and match them to courses? So here, I want to share something that I think is actually a very common instructor misconception. So I think a lot of instructors think that Udemy works by taking a course, probably your course, and trying to find the right learners for that course. But it's actually the other way around. Our matching systems are built to start with the learner and what they need and what they're most likely to respond to, and then look for the content, the course or the learning content that's most likely to resonate with them. And at the end of the day, this is how we build a business together. If learners aren't finding the courses or experience that are actually relevant to their goals, then we don't have a business, which means you don't have a business. So we're really laser focused on ensuring that students get strong, relevant recommendations, which lead to clicks, enrollments, and engagement. And for many of you who have been learners, I think that probably resonates, that we want to serve you what you're most likely to try and learn. So how do we actually do that with 65,000 plus courses? There are a lot of different mechanisms that match students and courses. I'll talk about just a few of them. So on site, there are different ways that we put courses in front of students. Instructors tend to really focus on search results, I think, because it's a clean way of sort of seeing how you stack up against your competition. There's a drive to understand search rankings as a way of understanding how you're performing against other instructors. But there's multiple ways, and most of them are more personalized than search results that we're showing students things on site. So we have recommendation modules that might be based on what a student has clicked on in the past or instructors that they've engaged with in the past. It might be based on topics that they've shown interest in. So it's less that we're looking for, the best photography course, and more that we're looking for the best photography course for this specific learner. So then we also have email, where we'll recommend specific courses within emails. And again, this is based off of a variety of factors, but personalization continues to be key. So we might look at what's in a student's cart that they, added but haven't purchased yet, or we might look at what learners with a similar profile have done and recommend courses to a learner who hasn't taken those yet. And then we even have, we have a module that's more from an instructor that you've taken courses from before. And then finally, we have some off-platform mechanisms for recommending courses. So that includes things like ads, whether that's on a social platform like Facebook or Instagram, or in search results like Google. And here, again, we're using what we know about the student to try to guess what is the course or the content that they're most likely to have a positive response to and recommend it. So next slide, please. All this means that if both of us do our jobs, so if you as instructors create content that is really right for a certain group of learners that will help them meet their goals better than any other content on Udemy could, and we build the systems to identify and recommend that content packaged and priced in a way that makes sense for the student and with enough information for them to feel confident committing to that, we build this amazing ecosystem where learners keep coming back because they know that no matter what it is they need to learn, including if they need to learn what to learn, they can find it on Udemy. My conference room has decided that I'm not using enough hand gestures because I've gone dark, but that's okay. We'll keep pushing on. So let's talk about the piece of your job that I just mentioned. Next slide, please, which is building content that helps a certain segment of learners in that unique way and equipping us to market it accurately and compellingly. Next slide. So I stole this from a dear colleague, Audrey Espy, who I think stole it from someone else before her, but fundamentally, there are 4 stages to creating content. You've got the planning stage, the production stage, publishing, and promoting. And obviously, each one of these could be an hour-long presentation in its own right. I'm not going to tell you everything there is to know about each of these things. And some of it will be specific to your situation. But for each of these, I want to share 2 or 3 tips or frameworks that I've seen instructors find valuable for getting the most out of that phase. And then I want to share one thing that's true no matter what phase you're at. And honestly, if you walk away today with nothing other than this is the single most important thing that I can tell you. So whenever you're working on whatever stage it is, make sure that you think like a student. So when you're planning your course, think, as a student, what am I trying to learn or do on Udemy that I can't do right now? Where is there sort of an opportunity to serve someone who's not being served? When you're producing, you can think, what does it feel like to not know this? And I'll give a shout out here to Mike Cohen, who spoke at our company all hands meeting as another instructor on Udemy, and who mentioned that, he saw one of his strengths as an instructor as his ability to empathize with students who are at the beginning of the learning journey within a topic. I think as experts, it's easy to forget what it feels like to know nothing. And so putting yourself in that student's shoes and remembering, what it takes to go A through G and not jump straight through G. Then for publishing, this stage is really about setting up Udemy to understand what's in your course and which students would be right for it, or which, who it's right to recommend it to. So think, if I were a student, what would I be learning for, and what would signal to me that I'm in the right place to learn this topic? And finally, when you're promoting, think about from the learner's point of view, what would make me choose my course over someone else's course? And if you can keep that student lens in everything that you do, you will already be a step ahead of other instructors. So let's talk about planning. So this is the stage where your course is just kind of a glimmer in your eye. So a lot of courses are really defined by the moment that the instructor chooses what to teach. And when I say topic here, I don't just mean sort of the tag that we put on your course to understand the subject area. I mean things like, what's the instructional level? Is it truly for beginners, or is it for people who do have some experience? The use case. So somebody who's teaching Excel, there's so many different applications of Excel, right? And someone who's using it as a program manager is going to be having different questions and different skills than someone who's using it to do accounting. And so being clear who is using your course and for what matters. There's also instructional style. Some people really want sort of edutainment, something that it might take a little longer to get to the concrete learning outcome, but it's more fun along the journey. Other people, again, I mentioned Udemy learners are time strapped, and other people want to jump straight to the thing they need to know. So as you're choosing your topic, you want to ask yourself, first, how many people are trying to learn this? In marketing speak, this is your total addressable audience. What are they trying to use it for? What's the problem that they're trying to solve with your course? And can they already do that? This is the competitive research part, where you want to understand what are the other options that learners who are trying to learn your topic already have access to. Next slide, please. So let's talk about a tool. So I think most of you are probably familiar with the Marketplace Insights tool on Udemy. So it is basically, it's aggregating supply and demand data on a topic level. And here, when I say topic, I do mean the specific tag that we use to categorize courses on Udemy. So Marketplace Insights can help you understand, first of all, if there's already an audience on Udemy for your topic, which is slightly different from the question of if there is demand for your course in general, and then what that audience can already access on Udemy. So what your competitive set looks like. So today, I think instructors love looking at the pretty charts around search data and sort of looking for the highest search volume topics, but I want to talk about two underrated components of Marketplace Insights. So let's first talk about search keywords and topics of interest. So if you're on a particular topic, that means it's the structured defined tag that we've put onto that subject. But the top search keywords are telling you what students are actually putting into the search bar. And often this gives you a little bit more context on what they're trying to use it to learn. And so it could be that it's the specific actions associated with the skill that you're teaching, or it could sometimes they might even put their occupation into that field. It also might flag to you under the other topics of interest, other undersupplied topics. So you can see on here, if you search GitHub, it gives you a little star on version control to let you know that, hey, we're seeing students search for this and not enroll in things, not find what they're looking for. Then I'll say, Marketplace Insights is all the data that's on Udemy, but learning demand exists on and off our platform. So you can validate this information and get more context by using Google Trends. So try putting something that you've already put into Marketplace Insights in Google Trends to understand, hey, is this does this demand exist both on and off Udemy, or is it specific to Udemy? Next slide, please. Then the other module here is the existing courses module. So this is going to tell you, what is already on Udemy for these learners to choose from. So one mistake that I see instructors make here sometimes is using this tool to try to pick a course to imitate and to say, hey, if this is the most successful course in this topic, I want to make my course look like this course so it has a better chance of succeeding. But your goal here shouldn't be to imitate so much as it should be to differentiate, to say, if this is the course that's already doing well, how can I make a course that does something that serves a slightly different group of people in order to succeed and to stand out? So you can augment this with a search on Google and YouTube to understand what the options are off of Udemy as well, because every time, I think we get laser focused on what's already happening on platform, but learners are choosing from more than just what's on Udemy. So you can also check the off-platform supply there as well. Next slide. So then, thinking beyond Marketplace Insights when it comes to planning your course topic, you're all industry experts. You are out there understanding what it is that people need to learn in your field. And so there might be times when you actually have information before it makes its way into Marketplace Insights or onto Udemy in general. So stay plugged into your industry. I worked with an instructor a few years ago who taught what was at the time a fairly obscure mobile programming language, but who had been following trends and knew that there was a chance it might get basically endorsed by Google as an officially supported language for Android. And when that happened, he already had 3 courses on the subject matter, and he was primed to make the most of that sudden demand that appeared on Udemy. So staying plugged into his industry really helped him there. You can also consider, if Marketplace Insights tells you that there's not really demand for something on Udemy right now, that doesn't mean that there's not ever going to be demand. You can consider if you want to be the first to establish that topic. And that does mean that you're going to have to put in more marketing effort. But if the particular topic is a good match for those general principles that I mentioned of Udemy learners, people who are career driven, people who are motivated and tech savvy, then you can usually count that once you've established that audience, that it will continue to be, it'll sort of become a part of that Udemy ecosystem. And finally, just a quick plug, our product team has been working on providing deeper insights into what opportunities there are for underserved topic areas or use cases on Udemy, and better incorporating data on demand from the Udemy business side. So in the coming weeks and months, watch out for sort of more detailed information about ways to plan your next course. Awesome. Let's talk about producing. So This is a huge one, and I have to say, I am probably one of the less useful people to talk about production advice at Udemy. I have super smart colleagues who can, from learning design, who can teach you, what's pedagogically correct, and I have amazing coworkers on the creative team who could dive deep into having a fantastic AV setup or building amazing graphics. You could possibly hear from them in another AMA, but I do have a number of tips to share, especially as it relates to that thinking like a student piece. How do you effectively serve an online learner? So next slide. So I would say a frequent question instructors ask is, should I use talking head or should I use slides? When is voiceover appropriate versus directly addressing my audience? And I think all of those are secondary to the question of how can I build connection and understanding with my audience? So this as online instructors, and many of you I saw in the chat are students as well, which is fantastic. Online learning is unusual in its isolation, meaning students, most of our learning experiences begin in classrooms or with other people. And so when you're learning from an online course, it can sometimes feel impersonal, like watching a TV show. And so feeling that connection with your instructor can be a great source of motivation and of engagement. So whenever you can, take an opportunity to build connection. This doesn't have to be through talking head videos where you directly show your face, but it can be in the way that you deliver and speak directly to students, or just take a more engaging delivery style. So what I would say is, it's good to have a human face for at least the very beginning of your course to show students who you are and that you're a human being. But further in, it matters more the way that you speak to your audience, and the way that you try to maintain that human element. Then when it comes to adding visuals, you want to add visuals to enhance understanding, not just for the sake of having visuals. So I think this is Audrey, actually, who I stole the 4 Ps from in our How to Create an Online Course. And I think Audrey did a really great job of, not putting every single thing that she's sharing on the screen, but using bullet points to really emphasize those key points. Then if you have a demonstration where you're showing people what to learn, you want them to be able to see that. I wish I could say that I haven't seen courses where instructors are just sort of describing a process with no visual of what that process actually looks like. But if you're describing something that can be shown in a video, show it in the video, please. And finally, if you do have more in-depth resources, things that are more text heavy, then it's great to use those as a downloadable resource for a number of reasons. One of them is accessibility, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it also means that, you're not asking the student to process a ton of information on the screen all at one time. Then finally, you want to consider the expectations of learners in your particular topic area. Some topics, especially within like professional skills, come with expectations of, what your background environment will look like and what your personal dress or presentation will look like. Others, it doesn't matter as much. The same way that, if you've ever worked in a tech company, probably your engineers might dress a little bit differently from your sales reps. And there are sort of expectations associated with different topics that you want to consider when you're teaching to that audience. Next slide, please. I want to talk about your first 15 minutes. And I know this is a spicy topic for instructors. Many of you know, and many of you don't love, that Udemy prompts learners for a review pretty early in the course. And what I want to emphasize here is that we put it that early because that's where students are already making up their minds about the course. What we found is that if learners are not finding what they need right when they begin, they just leave, and then we don't even get a chance to collect that feedback, and you don't get a chance to engage them further. So that review prompt puts a lot of pressure on the very beginning of the course to deliver a great experience, because there is already a lot of pressure on the beginning of the course to deliver a great experience. Your first 15 minutes need to accomplish a lot of things. So first of all, we already talked about establishing connection. You need your learners to feel like you are a human who is invested in their success. You also want to give them confidence that your course will actually help them meet their goals. So that includes your credentials, although you don't need to give them your entire CV. Those of you who've been a learner can probably tell you that when an instructor spends an entire lecture just telling you, what their entire background is, as soon as it stops feeling relevant beyond, I'm qualified to teach this course, you're going to lose them. And then, help them understand that they're in the right place. Reaffirm what the course objectives are. And then finally, or two more things, you want to set expectations about what will be required of them from the course. So for example, if you know they're going to need to do particular downloads, if you know that the exercises you offer are key to success in the course, set that expectation early so students aren't taken aback later on. And then finally, you want to give learners proof that they can do it with a quick win. So you might have heard about quick wins before. I know this is challenging because realistically, in the first 15 minutes, you haven't taught someone a whole new skill. But if you can get them to just do something so that they feel like they're plugged in and they know they can do it further down the line, it is really engaging. One great example, I have taken at this point hundreds of hours of Udemy courses, and I took a Tableau course at one point where the instructor had me just create a map visualization in Tableau using some data that was provided in a downloadable resource. I did not know why the steps I was taking worked, but it let me sort of see the power of the software in one go in a way that made me excited to learn through the rest of the course how I could do that on my own in an independent way. And so if you give them something that they've created or that they've done so that they feel like, yes, I can do that, this person can help me actually achieve something, they're much more likely to stick around. Then the last piece is just basically your first 15 minutes are still in effect part of your promo. Students are still making up their mind at this point. On the marketplace, there's a chance that people might go for a refund. Within subscriptions, people can, jump to a different course entirely. And so in your first 15, you're still really, you're selling, but you're selling in a way that's giving them an actual taste of what your instructional style is. Next slide, please. Let's think beyond video. So many of you know, especially if you've been teachers in the real world, watching is not learning. And so a student who just watches a video course didn't necessarily learn anything from it. Learners also really value practice. If you look at your reviews, there are those sub-metrics where learners have a chance to sort of check off which things did work or not work for them in the course. Almost across the board, the most lacking one tends to be opportunities for practice. So you want opportunities to weave practice throughout the course. So it's not just something to chuck at the end of a section. It's not just a practice test at the end of the course. It should be something that has the learner sort of in having an opportunity to engage on their own terms throughout the whole course. So you can start with really narrow or simple practice and then get more open and complex as learners build their skill and can start to put bigger puzzle pieces together. So as a couple highlights, you can use the quiz feature for simple recall. Were students paying attention to the point that they actually knew, or were they on their phones while they had your course running? Or testing simple applications. So if you've given them a framework or an idea, a way that a framework for giving feedback at work, then you can present them with a situation and ask which of these best fits this framework. Then coding exercises, obviously this one is specifically relevant for folks who are teaching development or data science. For quick checks of, can you structure your code this way? Coding exercises are a great way to get students engaged without having them go through the rigmarole of downloading and setting up a whole environment on their own machine. So especially for early in the course, coding exercises are a great way to get learners plugged in and feeling like they can do it. And finally, downloadable resources are probably the most flexible tool because you can upload so many different things, but you can use them to sort of give students a cheat sheet, a takeaway of your key points. You can create worksheets or provide them source code or project templates. There's a lot of things you can do with downloadable resources to give students opportunities beyond just watching your videos. Next slide, please. Then finally, I want to talk about modularity, accessibility, and mobile learning. So I know there's a lot to keep in mind, and I've talked about, centering the learner and thinking about what it is they need in your course. It's important to keep in mind that not every student is going to be watching your course from the beginning, for example. So first 15, that's where most people start, but some people are specifically trying to do something and they can't do it, and they're going to be jumping straight to the lecture or section that they think can help them do it. Not everyone will be taking it on a desktop computer. Some people are watching on their phones or on a tablet, which really changes what you can see on the screen. And not everyone is watching your course with perfect sight or hearing. I am visually impaired personally, and I can't tell you the number of courses where the instructor shared their entire screen rather than the specific relevant component. And it meant that I had no prayer of actually seeing what the relevant part was. And if I had been on a phone, it would have been, nobody could have seen it. So you can sort of broaden your total addressable market and reach more students if you, first of all, keep your visuals simple and clear. And again, you can use resources to provide more complicated things so that people can use, tools on their device to zoom in and play with them and make them what they need. You can also edit your captions. This is actually super important for reasons beyond your hearing impaired students. Students who are learning in a language, who know your language but aren't super comfortable with it, rely on captions to help them understand as they progress through. And it's also your searchable transcript. So for those students who are trying to jump in at a certain point, having really good, clear, edited captions helps people find what they're looking for more quickly. You can also clearly label your sections and your lectures. That again helps people who are looking to dive in somewhere in the middle. And wherever possible, think about creating lectures where if there is a prerequisite, it is truly a skill versus the specific part of your course. Because if somebody is jumping in right to that point, as long as they have the prerequisite knowledge, they should be able to understand your lecture. But if it's full of references towards specific things that you provided earlier in the course, that's harder. And I know this one is tricky. So it's a hard thing to think about having something that works both as a traditional, A, B, C, D, E course and as more of a textbook or reference book where people can jump in wherever, but it is possible. Final shout out, our teaching center recently got a great resource for creating accessible learning content. And so if you go to teach.udemy.com, I believe it's under production, you can see sort of some tips for creating content that really works for learners with various disabilities. So that was production. That's the longest section. You won't have to hear me talk for as long on these other ones. Let's talk about publishing. So you got here, you made it to the point where you're ready to publish your course. Next slide, please. I want to return to this idea of the student ocean, all these people and figuring out what course is right for what person. So the theme here is going to be help us help you. That there are often questions about, how do I categorize my course to reach as many people as possible? But you really want to be reaching as many of the right people as possible, the people who are most likely to engage with your course. So you could, one thing some instructors do is to actually write their landing page before they even produce the course, which helps them sort of crystallize exactly who it's for and who you're trying to reach. And then that guides the content development. Next slide, please. So there's sort of two components to this. One is the course metadata, which is going to influence your traffic, meaning who actually is exposed to your course. So that's your title, where you want the quickest, most efficient way possible to capture what am I teaching, who is it for, what is the use case. Then your subtitle, where you can give a little bit more detail, a little bit more sort of human feeling, and anything that's differentiating your course from something on a similar topic. Then your taxonomy, again, you want to go accurate here, not broad, because your conversion matters. And if you're exposing yourself to tons of learners, but none of them are interested in your course, you're actually not helping yourself. And finally, your instructional level. A lot of instructors always just pick all levels because, again, it's that spirit of like, I want as many people as possible to see it, but consider an opportunity to differentiate. If your course truly is for expert learners, tagging it as expert will expose it to fewer people, but more people who are likely to actually be interested in it and actually convert, which will help you a lot. So next slide. Landing page then. So we talked about the metadata is who's going to see it. The landing page says who is actually going to choose it. So course image, I'm just going to give one tip for each of these. Don't forget that your course image gets cropped. I've seen a lot of like half instructor faces on my mobile app, so watch out for that one. With your promo video and your preview videos, you want to give students sort of a taste of your instructional style in a compelling way. But if every lecture they preview is sort of like a promotion in and of itself, then they don't actually get that flavor and they can't actually make an informed choice. With your course objectives, one thing I think not every instructor realizes, the first three matter a lot. They are what appear when you hover over something on the site. So if you hover over a course card, we're highlighting, hey, here's the three most important things this will help you learn. So choose the three most important learning objectives to put first. Requirements, everyone loves to say there's no prerequisites, but this ties back to empathizing with a student who doesn't know anything yet. They often don't know what they don't know. Then with your course description, this is mostly useful for SEO impacts, meaning external SEO. So your course description, Google cares a lot about your course description and what keywords are in there. And if students are like taking time on the page to read it through. So having an engaging, thorough course description can help you there. And then finally, curriculum. And honestly, on this slide, if there's no other piece of your CLP that you focus on other than your curriculum, then choose that. I think often instructors sort of forget that your curriculum appears on your landing page, but it is very much like the nutritional facts of the course. Students are checking it to be sure, like, is this good for me, basically? So the titles that you give your sections and your lectures will actually be a big part of their assessment of if your course is the right one for them. Next slide, please. Then we're going to talk about promoting. And this is my shortest section because I do think that this is, and I know this is a really challenging one for instructors, and we get a lot of questions about it. This is the one that is kind of most unique to each instructor's situation. Marketing looks really different in different topic areas. So again, getting back to thinking like a learner and, why would you choose this course over another? When a course is brand new, it is often really difficult to get a student with no familiarity with the topic or the instructor to enroll with it. But the advantage that you have early on is that people do know you. You have some sort of network, some sort of professional network of people that you use the skill that you're teaching with, or who know you and know your instructional style. And so early in a course's life cycle, the instructor is often the most qualified person to sort of identify that correct audience, which then helps Udemy understand what audience might be right for the course. Frequent question, should I promote my course for free, either by making it a free course and then changing it, or by offering free coupons early in a course's life cycle? The honest answer here is that it doesn't really matter if you promote it for free or not, but it does matter whether or not the people who enroll with it actually engage and go on to leave ratings and reviews. That enrollments alone don't often make a big difference in terms of other students' willingness to participate, but reviews do. And so your free audience, if all you do is get a bunch of people to redeem the coupon but do nothing else, won't help you very much. But if you can attract an audience who, even if they enroll for free, are progressing and leaving honest reviews, that actually can help you quite a bit. Then finally, I'll say content marketing is often the most accessible for instructors without an audience, because content is what you're offering. And so there's a good match between saying, I created this YouTube video, with the tutorial for how to do this particular concept. And if you want more, go check out my course. And all of these tools, all of these marketing tools, they take time to build trust. But again, best sort of who that early audience is when the course doesn't have very much information on our side. Next slide, please. Then I do want to say, it's tough to break into a topic area on Udemy when something is already very established, but it's not just about raw performance numbers. Momentum does matter in our matching systems. And so, recency counts. It's not just about how many enrollments you have total, but how many enrollments do you have compared to the number of enrollments that you had, last month or last year or whatever it is. That the trend in a course performance is also factoring into whether or not that course gets surfaced to students. Many of you probably know only ratings from the last 90 days count, because we need to know what students today are thinking about courses. If your course has fewer than 10 ratings, then that will be how it's calculated. But above 10 ratings, it's just the last 90 days ratings that count. Then, so robust social proof, meaning having a lot of ratings and reviews, that definitely helps with conversion. If you're thinking like a learner, it just feels safer to choose something with 100 reviews than something with only 2 reviews. But if you're steadily attracting new learners, if you're improving month over month and your course is sort of trending upward, it's much more likely that even if it has smaller numbers overall, that it will get recommended to someone else. All right, so I'm going to add a 5th P here. And Christy, could you click for me? So we've talked about planning, producing, publishing, and promoting, but I also want to give a couple more general tips about progressing as an instructor on Udemy. So we'll just have one slide here, but here's what it's like to think about being an instructor for the long term. Next slide, please. Oops. Other way. So all instructors are small businesses, essentially. And so persistence is key. When a new business opens, it's very rare that you're going to see sort of an overnight miraculous success. It's going to take tweaking and iterating and listening to your learners and trying new things to make it work. If you're a first-time instructor, one piece of advice I want to give is that almost every established instructor I've talked to says that they look back on their first course and just cringe super hard. And so you will learn so much in the progress of creating your first course. I often say first course, first pancake, because the first pancake of the batch usually doesn't look exactly like you wanted to, but then the griddle is warm and it's ready for the rest of the batch. And so I would focus on honing your craft as you build your first course, and then use that to continue to build that persistence as you build your business on Udemy. I think, as an instructor, you want to watch performance obsessively, and that's fine. It's very tempting, but try to keep it in perspective. So early on, individual students' behaviors, whether it's an individual refund or an individual rating, carry a ton of weight. But the further you get in your journey on Udemy, the more you can sort of look at the bigger picture and not have to worry about every individual student, but really focus on delivering value to your core audience. Then also Udemy can be pretty seasonal. So you want to try to understand your performance in context. And there's different ways to do that. We are a public company. You can check our earnings reports. You can talk to other instructors in the community. You can look at Marketplace Insights or Google Trends to see, is there something within my topic area that's changing, or is it my courses specifically? And then, just focus on knowing who it is that you're trying to help, that core audience that you're serving, and doing something that is truly unique that you can offer that is different from what other instructors are offering to give to that audience. So let's wrap up. I've been trying to remember to speak slowly. People who have worked with me for a long time know that it's not in my blood, so I apologize if I've been racing. But here's our last point. So that was a ton of information. If we're going to zoom back and just take away only 3 things, here are those 3 things. Next slide, please. Be the right instructor for some learners. So you're not trying to teach everyone. You're trying to know who your audience is and be the best for that particular audience, and make sure that we can know who that audience is by, setting your metadata correctly and by creating course descriptions and assets that really help us know who is right for this course. Then, no matter what stage you're at, think like a student, put yourself in their shoes and understand what it is that they need and how they might choose your course versus another, what would make them choose it. And then finally, last thing, don't lose sight of the specialness of what we're doing. And this is very cheesy, but I get a little verklempt when I think about this sometimes. I lived in the Mission in San Francisco for 5 years, and there was a cafe that I would always go to. And one day I wore my Udemy swag, and the cashier, who I saw like every week, was just delighted and was like, "Oh, I didn't know you worked at," he said Udemy, but that's fine. And he had this amazing metaphor that he said, because he was learning some very different topics. He had a couple different courses going, but he said when he sits down to learn on Udemy, he always thinks about the person who's in the classroom from Argentina and the person who's in the classroom from Japan, and how he had this sense of this global classroom that he was sharing with these other people. And he felt like learning from all of you connected him to that, and that he felt like he knew his instructors, even though they had no idea who he was. So I think it's really easy to get caught up in the video production and the marketing and the, checking your sales reports and those things. And all of those things matter, but it also matters to remember that you are doing something incredible, which is opening up opportunities for learning that may not have existed for some people before, and connecting them through each other through this sort of like new world of online learning. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for showing up to listen to me today. And I think I'm done, and it's time for questions.
Okay. Yes, Katie, thank you so much. That was really great. There's so much conversation happening in the chat, Katie, that I know that you were missing because you were presenting, but a lot of fun conversation about how long it's taking instructors to create their courses and whatnot. We did have some questions come in, and I asked that if you have any questions for Katie at this point, to use the Q&A box and go ahead and put your questions in there. Some of the questions that have come through already, I've seen are a little more technical, and I know that Katie said she is not your production expert. So what I thought might be fun is maybe if I ask some of these questions and then have all of you instructors who are here today just answer in the chat. That could be a great way to get some of these questions answered. I also saw that Bella was answering some of the questions as well. But Debbie had a question, and again, this is for you instructors. She says, I am still very new to this. What advice would you have for learning to edit videos? So instructors, I ask you, what did you do in the beginning to learn how to edit videos? If you have any advice for Debbie, any different YouTube videos or websites or programs that you use to do that, this would be a time to go ahead and put it in the chat. Katie, people are giving you high fives in the chat box.
I'm just reading the chat for the first time, and it is very active. That is so exciting to see.
Yes. Let's see. All right, we have some coming in. Great. All right. So, here's kind of a good question. And, we see this topic in the community, and this essentially has to do with marketplace insights. So Jen asks, if you're a grammar school teacher, elementary, what are topics that I can teach on Udemy? It appears to be mostly geared for adults. So in the event, if she wanted to use the marketplace insights tool to sort of help her inform that, what are some searches she might make, or what would be her first steps?
Yeah. So I think this ties back to two things that we talked about earlier. One is the sort of, who are Udemy learners? And I'll say, I think in our terms of use, 13 is the minimum age of use of Udemy. And so like grammar school might be a tough sell. Like you're right that we are generally more geared towards adult learning. But, the beauty of Udemy is that you can teach anything. And so when we talked about marketplace insights, I mentioned that, you can decide for yourself if you want to try to establish a topic on Udemy, but you might also consider, as a grammar school teacher, you're not only equipped to teach grammar, you have other skills that you employ in your professional life, and you already clearly have the skill of teaching, since that's what you do for a living. And so you could consider, what are skills that I use that aren't the grammar itself that I'm teaching that I might be able to teach on Udemy, in order to sort of like more closely match that audience of professional skills learners. So, it's not a hard no on teaching grammar. There are obviously lots of people who need to learn English grammar or whatever grammar it is that you teach. But if you wanted to be closer to the audience that's already on Udemy, you might consider how to make that relevant for sort of an adult, career-oriented audience.
Awesome. And Salil had a question about differentiation. I know you talked a lot about creating unique courses, not just trying to imitate other courses. What have you seen instructors do to differentiate their specific course from others?
Yeah, great question. This is a complex one. You could talk about it for a long time because there's many axes of differentiation. So some of them are going to be about instructional style. So for example, there are some people who will structure a whole course around doing projects. And so it's a very like doing based way of teaching. And then again, make sure that your title, your subtitle, everything sort of reflects that. So students can say, this is a course that's going to be light on explanation, but heavy on practice. There's also ways that you can differentiate in terms of having a unique use case. And so returning to the Excel example, if you know that there's, a particular, you can teach Excel in a flexible way and you're figuring out what's the specific use case that I want to teach to, you can differentiate by finding a particular way of using Excel or a particular reason for using Excel that you really tailor to. And then that comes through in the examples that you choose to give, in the order that you present your curriculum, because the skills, the urgency of learning each skill will be different from each field. So, it could be about serving a different group. It could be about serving the same group, but in a different way. I've seen some instructors, like Colt Steele sort of differentiates on having like a more goofy instructional style that his cat guest stars in some of his videos. And he makes jokes as he goes through. And so there can also sort of be a personality differentiation. I will say, like, one thing to keep in mind, this is also an advantage against like other options that learners have for learning online, because a lot of other online learning opportunities pretty rigidly structure how they expect their instructors to deliver the education, that they sort of have a standardized template and a rigid idea of what sort of professional instruction looks like. On Udemy, you have the flexibility to pick how you want to teach. And we've heard from learners that that's a draw, that it's not sort of, every instructor is effectively teaching the same way, that people have the flexibility to find the instructor whose style works for them.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for answering that live. And I see a lot of questions coming in about access to the slides with this presentation. And I just want to remind all of you, yes, we will be posting this in the instructor community later this week, so you will have access to it. There's one thing clear in the chat and the questions, that people want to know more about marketing. So I thought this would be another great opportunity to sort of head over to the crowd of instructors over here and ask you, instructors, what are you doing to market your courses? What have you found to be most helpful in marketing your Udemy courses? Go ahead and put that in the chat now. And that's for all of you who have asked about marketing. And then Katie will have at least one more question for you.
Yeah. Can I jump in with one more thing on the?
Yes.
It's going to kind of be a rehash of something I already said, but I do think, like, and speaking as somebody who's on the marketing team, one of the biggest marketing mistakes people make is just forgetting the learner experience. Like, why should somebody choose your course? And so often when you're marketing something, it's really centered on the reasons that you want them to purchase the course and not centered on the reasons that they would actually benefit from having the course. And so just saying like, this is the best course on this topic might not answer the fundamental problem of why do I even need to learn this topic? And so you can solve that either by finding the people who are already aware of the need to learn that because it's, in their domain. So forums that are focused on that specific career, or by using your marketing to help people understand why mastering this skill will actually help them improve their lives and why it's worth the money that they would spend and the time they would spend, because that's another component of the student sort of return on investment equation.
Awesome. And in the chat, I see people are saying they have communities for their students. They're interacting with their students. Deandra is using YouTube, her own app, Instagram, a website. Some are using Facebook and Instagram. So it's clear that you are using a lot of different channels to promote your courses. So Katie, I'm going to pose this one to you. Anjali's asking, they say, so many students register but don't start the course. And maybe there's not a question there, but that is, that is something that we see at Udemy. Really? And maybe you could talk about ways that they could, incite their registrants to start the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say like, this is often a challenge with any sort of asynchronous learning product, because in the same way that, I buy a book because I'm like, I probably want to read this book at some point, but then I have the book. And so there's not really any urgency into starting the book. And then it sits on my shelf for several years. So like, this is very much a thing we are all guilty of and can empathize with students. A couple things you can do as an instructor to increase the odds that somebody who chooses your course actually starts it. One is your welcome messages. So if you haven't configured your welcome messages, this is something that will fire to the student when they start the course. And so that's an opportunity to give them something concrete to do. I've seen some instructors use this to give students sort of study guides that say, hey, if this is when you're trying to learn this skill, plan to use, to complete section 1 by the end of 2 weeks from now or something like that. Like give them some structure and some call to action of what to come and do, even if it's, say hi in the Q&A or something like that, something for them to do early on. The other piece is your all of the materials that you have on your landing page can help students understand the urgency of learning the skill. And so the more compelling you've sort of made the pitch on why they should actually purchase your course, the more likely it is that that should tie to the urgency of needing this skill to reach the goals that they're trying to reach. But it is tough. Educational announcements, not every student opts in to receive them, but you can also send announcements to students. I've seen instructors do learning challenges where they'll have, like a raffle or something for students who complete a certain amount of the course by a certain deadline. I'm not the policy team, so I'm pretty sure that that's still chill, but when in doubt, check in with the policy team. But yeah, there's a variety of things you can do as an instructor to try to get people off their butts and actually into the learning seat.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. I'm going to have another question for instructors. Hassan is saying, this is my first course, but I would like to know if PowerPoint slideshow is acceptable for teaching, or are there other platforms out there? So instructors, what are you using for your presentations, for your courses? Go ahead and put that in the chat. That'll be interesting to see. And then Katie, we have a question about the future of insights. So let's give this one a few seconds. Let's see what people are saying. PowerPoint, Video Scribe. Let's see what else is coming in. Camtasia has everything. This is really great, guys. And I want you to know, like, of things to come that are in the community. We hope to start doing more networking sessions. And I love what I'm seeing in the chat, because this is exactly what we want. We really want to bring instructors together so you can collaborate, with your peers. And I already see that happening. So I'm very excited about this. All right. Keynote, PowerPoint, Google Slides, PowerPoint's fine. Great. Awesome. Okay, so we got some ideas there. Katie, back to you. Michael's asking, are there any plans to expand the Insights tool to have information similar to Google Trends, but for search queries on Udemy only?
Interesting. Yes. So the information in Marketplace Insights is today reflecting sort of Udemy search, where we've boiled down the search term, attached it to sort of like specific topic tags, if that makes sense. So it is sort of within the structured data, but it does pull from search on Udemy in the same way that Google Trends would. So I think it already does what you're describing, unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
Awesome. So Michael, if you need some follow-up on that, go ahead and put that in the QA. That's great. Sorry, just one more quick note on that. Yeah. I will say, so like, just to call out another sort of limitation of only looking at that, though, is that students don't always, like,
that's not the singular path students use to enroll, right? It's not that every student comes to Udemy, searches for something, and then enrolls. You can see on Marketplace Insights what sort of the different paths that students take are, and like recommendation and email discovery and all those things also play a role. And so, it's not just about the search. I think is the clearest indication of intent, because the student, that's somebody who already had an idea of what they were trying to learn. But part of what Udemy does is like help give people an idea of what they need to learn through those recommendations. And so that's also another piece of the demand puzzle.
Great. And I know that you touched on this earlier, but Malay is asking, when there's a brand new course in the marketplace with existing courses on the same topic, like how is that course marketed by Udemy?
Yeah. So this is where I was mentioning like the early audience really matters, because if we return to that concept of, we're always starting with the learner and looking at what they're most likely to respond to, it's going to be tough if we have no information at all about who that course is right for. And so the early audience, there's some topics where if there's thin enough supply, you will get exposure no matter what, because there are students who, will show a whole suite of courses, 5 courses in a recommendation module. And 3 of those might not have social proof yet. But if you're trying to enter a pretty crowded space, you're going to need to do some upfront marketing to help the Udemy engine understand why your course is more likely to get clicks and engagement than another established course in that space. So, that's part of topic selection in terms of, not trying to go head to head with somebody who already has incredibly robust social proof where that need is already being pretty well met. But then also, helping equip Udemy to market your course by understanding what it is that makes it better or different through both your social proof and then your metadata, so that we can successfully promote it.
Okay. And Wakas has a question about fluctuations in monthly sales. Is there anything within their instructor dashboard that they can use to decipher, why this is happening?
Mm-hmm. Within the instructor dashboard. So, for obvious reasons, we don't publish every instructor's revenue. So, we're not going to be able to give you full context on exactly sort of how you fit in with that big picture. We do have, every quarter we're going to publish earnings, which will include, you'll be able to understand the marketplace versus Udemy Business and other things like that. So you can textualize. In the moment, I think your best bet is probably talking to other instructors. You can also, some people do this. I don't know how, it seems like a lot of work to me, but some people will actually monitor their competitors' enrollments day to day. And so to understand like, I only had, 4 new students in the last week, but my competitors also only had like a smaller number than usual, oh, wow, actually that person like totally shot up and I didn't see that boost, like something must be particular to my course. So probably not. Yeah, there's not a super like singular great tool for contextualizing, like, is this a seasonal moment or not? But you can look at other instructors and look at the sort of public cues on the platform or an earnings report to try to contextualize.
Great. And I did see a question asking about like instructor swag. I will say I think it was last winter, we did do a giveaway. You can expect more of those in the community to get t-shirts and different sort of Udemy swag. So we do like to give that away to our instructors. All right, we have 3 more minutes here. Let's see. It looks like Michael came back in terms of the Marketplace Insights. He said, Katie, you can see search engine queries for only existing topics on Udemy, yes, but not all search queries or keywords are existing topics.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, and at the moment we don't have that. I'm totally happy to take that to the product team as feedback, but I don't believe that's on the roadmap at the moment to sort of have the raw search queries. I also think there's probably some amount of processing that would be necessary to actually make those useful and helpful, because even understanding when is something a typo versus actually how it's something to write. But I can see how that would be useful. So.
Okay, let's do one more question for the instructors. We have 2 minutes here. Someone's asking, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to create courses. Instructors, what are your best time-saving tips? Through your experiences, what have you done to sort of cut your course creation time down for this person who really wants to be a Udemy instructor, but doesn't have a whole lot of time? I would love to see that in the chat. And then as you guys are answering that, let's go ahead and just wrap up here. Thank you for attending. This was really great. Katie, this presentation was amazing. And it's clear that everyone was very excited about it in the chat. For you instructors, we have another webinar next month. It's going to be the 5 things you must be doing after publishing your course. So be sure to head over to the community to be the first to find out about that. And then lastly, we will be giving you a post-event survey. Again, please fill this out. This really helps us determine which kind of webinars that you want to see in the future. So thank you again. And one last time, we will be posting this in the community later this week, so you will have access to it. And it looks like there's a lot more things coming in, but for now, I apologize, we are out of time. So have a good time. Have a good day, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you
you,
so much,
Katie.
everyone. Take care.